Shandu, the world needs thee. Go forth in thy youth and strength, and conquer the evil that threatens mankind. This man is Roxor. The death ray in the hands of Roxor means an end to goodness, an end to all that is noble, an end to all that is sane. Heath Ledger, the one and only villain who got more fans than the hero. With all due respect to Mr. Ledger, I don't think the person who made that has seen many movies. And I know they haven't seen the 1932 superhero movie Shandu the Magician, starring horror icon Bela Lugosi as the villain Roxor. With only a few silent Zorro films and some Tarzan pictures coming before it, Shandu the Magician is one of the first superhero movies, and it's one of my favorites. In the 1920s and 30s, there was a fascination with religions from other cultures. And in Hollywood, swamis, mystics, seers, and occultists were all the rage. On the KHJ radio station in Los Angeles, Harry Earnshaw, R.R. Morgan, and scriptwriter Vera Oldman tapped into this fascination by creating the radio show Shandu the Magician. Now, for those wondering, the word Shandu is slang for opium. The show focused on Frank Chandler, whom studied Eastern magic with the yogis in India, and is now known as Shandu. Shandu has a sister, Dorothy Regent, a niece and a nephew, Betty and Bobby, and a love interest, the Egyptian princess Naji. The early episodes focused on Dorothy's husband, Dr. Robert Regent, being held captive by the evil Roxor. First, it was broadcast only in Los Angeles, but then it spread throughout the entire West Coast, then the entire East Coast, and by 1932, it was nationwide. They did 5 shows a week, Monday through Friday. Each one was 15 minutes long, and it always ended with a cliffhanger. 60% of American homes were tuning in every night to listen to it. Everyone loved it, especially the kids. Cashing in on the radio success, Fox decided to make a movie version, which would use the characters, the main plot line, and the cliffhangers. Because of this cliffhanger story structure, which was similar to movie serials, just like serials did, Shandu would have 2 directors. Marcel Varnell brought comedy relief to the story, and famed art director William Cameron Menzies, who won the Best Art Direction Oscar at the very first Academy Awards, focused on the visual thrills. Edmund Lowe was cast as Shandu, and for the part of the villain, Fox decided to cash in on another new craze that was sweeping the nation: horror movies! Universal had just scored big with Dracula and Frankenstein. And who better to play Roxor than the man who brought the sinister Count Dracula to life, Bela Lugosi. Shandu has just finished 3 years of training with the yogis, and is now a yogi himself. His yogi teacher sends him to Egypt to stop the sinister Roxor. Shandu's brother-in-law, Dr. Robert Regent, has built a death ray, and Roxor has kidnapped him and stolen the machine so that he can conquer the world. However, Dr. Regent won't tell Roxor how it works, so Roxor tries to destroy Dr. Regent's family to make him crack. Shandu, along with his love Princess Naji and his alcoholic sidekick Albert Miggles, goes to Roxor's villainous lair, and Shandu uses hypnotism, astral projection, and his other yogi powers to rescue his family, defeat Roxor, and save the world. I dig my superheroes, and what surprised me so much is that even though this was made before those young punks Marvel and DC even existed, Shandu the Magician contains everything that I love about superhero movies. One of my favorite things about the Superman and Batman movies were the opening credits, where you hear the hero's theme music and it sets the tone for the movie. Opening credits were standard for the 30s, but in Shandu they do some creative things with it. And they use the theme music from the radio show. which creates an aura of the exotic and of magic. There are also action scenes and groovy moments where Shandu shows off his superpowers. You are to die. Before we die, accept my blessing. Ah! The Egyptian setting and the comedy relief give it an Indiana Jones feel. And the idea of overconfidence bringing the villain down. Your eyes will have no effect on me. Remove the bandages. And the imaginative death traps can't help but remind you of the 60s Batman. Now some prefer light-hearted superhero films, while others prefer something darker, like The Dark Knight. And Shandu has the perfect balance. The story is for kids. The love interest is a princess, and it's more about the hero-villain back and forth than the actual plot. There's not much depth, but it's certainly fun and makes you feel like a kid again. But if you're looking for something dark and twisted, like Heath Ledger's Joker, you get Hollywood's original Prince of Darkness, Bela Lugosi, who is playing it with the same seriousness and intensity that he brought to his horror roles. And while his plan of conquering the world with a death ray may sound like something a 6-year-old would come up with, his motive behind it is far more sadistic. Pharaoh! I shall be greater than any pharaoh. Civilization and all its works shall be destroyed. Men shall return to savagery, following only one supreme intelligence. Some superhero movies are like a horror movie, and others are like a comedy. But because they were creating the genre, they captured all aspects of it. And now, let's talk about our hero and our villain. What is often considered the worst part of the movie, even by the people on the Blu-ray, is Edmund Lowe's performance as Shandu the Magician. Edmund Lowe was a relatively popular actor. He was most famous for the comedy What Price Glory, and was in a well-publicized marriage with Lillian Tashman, although rumor has it that they were both gay and was a marriage of convenience. He has a light and breezy approach to his performance, which works well when he's acting as the uncle to Betty and to Bobby, and when he's playing off his comedy relief sidekick, Albert Miggles. This was when alcoholism was more of a laughing matter, and so that Miggles' drinking won't interfere with saving the world, Shandu casts his prankish spell on him, so that whenever Miggles drinks, a little version of Miggles will appear and tell him to stop. Are you still drinking, Miggles? Well, sir. Changing the subject, sir. Are you still doing your magic tricks? Oh, much better ones. Look at me. Now look behind you.
Miggles, aren't you ashamed of yourself? You're seeing things again.
The problem arises whenever he has to bring any kind of depth to his character. You don't believe he's in love with Princess Naji, and you certainly don't believe he's a mystic, and it does hurt the film. However, from listening to the radio show, Gane Whitman's portrayal of Shandu isn't that dissimilar, so I think they were going for just an average American who happened to learn these powers. And Lowe's lightness does provide a nice contrast to the darkness of Bela Lugosi's Roxor. Roxor is an insane Egyptian megalomaniac intent on conquering the world with his death ray. He has a sinister look and a great hideout, this ancient temple where they reused some of the old laboratory equipment from Frankenstein, which makes it feel even more like a horror movie. Every aspect of Bela Lugosi's persona makes him the perfect supervillain. Supervillains are charismatic. No matter what evil thing they're doing, you love watching them do it, and you can't take your eyes off Bela. Supervillains are theatrical! Now, Bela was always larger than life, and here he has license to go as big as he can, and he just relishes making every single word and gesture as menacing as possible. And they're wicked, and Bela is able to go beyond any human evil. I shall destroy the dams of the Nile. Its roaring floods will sweep down upon hundreds, thousands, drowning them like rats. And they shall bow down before me, Roxor, the He's like an evil god, and it's spooky. This was made less than 2 years after he made Dracula, so he was still handsome, full of energy, and remember, there was a sexual element to his portrayal of Dracula, especially when he did it on Broadway. Women went bats for him, and that's also part of Roxor. He's into selling women as slaves. He feels Princess Naji up. And when Dr. Regent agrees to tell him the secrets of the Death Ray, Roxor's response is almost orgasmic. I wish he could have played more parts like it. Could you imagine him as a Joker? I want to dye my hair. While Bela Lugosi is the number one reason to watch the movie, the number two are the visual thrills. When you listen to a radio show, just like with a book, you imagine what everything looks like in your mind. So this movie had to live up to what everyone had already seen in their own imaginations. And I think it must have. Director William Cameron Menzies did an amazing job with the sets. They provide so much atmosphere. And the cameraman, James Wong Howe, does magnificent camera work. I especially love this roller coaster shot of Roxor's temple. It's so lively, especially for the early days of sound. They also use tons of special effects. And while today's special effects may be more polished, the fact that they did these in 1932 give it a charm and a how did they do that quality that frankly doesn't exist anymore. Today is a joy to watch, so I can only imagine what it was like for the radio audience to see such an imaginative rendition of this world. The reviews were mixed, and so was the box office. It didn't do well in big cities, but was a smash in small towns, especially with the kids. And it did do well enough to get a sequel, The Return of Shandu, where Bela Lugosi plays Shandu, and after being typecast as Dracula, playing the hero was a rare opportunity indeed. The sequel was released, both as a 12-chapter serial and as 2 feature-length films, where the different chapters were edited together. The Return of Shandu, the feature film, featured the earlier chapters edited together, and Shandu on the Magic Island had the later ones. While Bela's career was at a high point in 1932, his free spending, enormous tips at Hungarian restaurants, and his overly generous nature left him with only $28 in the bank. There were 20 creditors after him. So shortly after Shandu the Magician's release, he had to declare bankruptcy. While he was struggling to get his finances together, the studios were giving him low salaries because they knew he was desperate. The radio show ended in 1936, but was revived in 1948. There was talk of doing a TV show during the Batman craze of the 60s, and of doing a movie in the 70s with Peter Sellers, but it never came to be, and it hasn't been remade since. However, Shandu the Magician did go on to inspire the science fiction writer Ray Bradbury. It inspired Mandrake the Magician, which is often considered the first comic book superhero, and it inspired Marvel's Doctor Strange. My friend Dave requested this video, and then I forgot about it, but then he reminded me, and I'm so glad he did. Because even though it's Bela Lugosi, because it's not a horror movie, it's not as well known as his other films. But it's a great Bela Lugosi role and a good superhero movie, so I give it 3 alcoholic sidekicks out of 4. And now let's have a drink.
If you do that, you're gonna mess up the editing even more than normal.
Have a magical day.